When a sharp object pierces the skin, it drags a payload of foreign pathogens directly into the vulnerable tissues beneath. What follows is the inflammatory reaction. As we can see from this medical definition, inflammation is the direct response of living, vascularized tissues to injury. The immediate physiological goal is twofold: physically contain the invading threat at the site of the breach, and sound the alarm for the body's biological first responders. The physical swelling, the sudden warmth, and the sharp pain of a minor cut are the physical machinery of the body actively fighting for survival. Containing the threat at the local site is only the first step. To mount a successful defense, the injured tissue has to coordinate with systems spread across the entire body. That coordination relies on pro-inflammatory cytokines, chemical messengers released straight from the damaged cells into the bloodstream. On a physiological map, cytokines travel to 3 command centers. In the nervous system, they trigger fever and anorexia to conserve energy. The liver produces inflammatory proteins, like CRP, and the bone marrow creates hyperleukocytosis, a massive surge of white blood cells. These newly minted white blood cells travel back to the wound site, slipping out of the blood vessels in a process called diapedesis to physically eliminate the invading microbes. A microscopic breach in the skin effectively rewires the host's brain chemistry and organ functions, converting a localized injury into a total biological mobilization. Once the white blood cells neutralize the pathogens, the site is left littered with dead tissue and cellular wreckage that must be removed. In this text defining the clearance phase, we see that debridement is the elimination of necrotic tissue, alongside dead pathogens and exudate fluid. It necessarily prepares the terminal phase of repair and healing. The body handles this internal debridement primarily through macrophages. These specialized cells engulf and digest the microscopic debris, while the excess edema fluid is drained away into the lymphatic circulation. In some cases, the body uses external debridement. Necrotic material liquefies into pus and is expelled outwards, often by spontaneously fistulizing or draining through the skin or internal ducts. If the internal lesions are too extensive or highly contaminated, spontaneous clearance isn't enough, making surgical debridement by a doctor indispensable. New tissue cannot be built over dead cells. Without a completely clean foundation, the final phase of biological reconstruction simply cannot begin. The ultimate outcome of this entire sequence depends on the initial cause of the wound, the duration of the injury, and the specific regenerative capacity of the tissue involved. Looking at the normal pathway on this flowchart, a properly regulated inflammatory response clears the way for cells called fibroblasts to lay down a new extracellular matrix, repairing the gap and restoring normal function. But when pathogens persist, or when the biological regulation itself breaks down, the response damages the very host it's trying to protect. Following the failure pathway, persistent injury can lead to pus formation in a localized abscess. Alternatively, the tissue shifts into chronic inflammation, marked by a continuous influx of mononuclear cells and the abnormal growth of new blood vessels. In the terminal stage of this chronic state, the body resorts to fibrosis. The functional tissue is entirely replaced by a rigid scar, resulting in a permanent loss of capability in that specific area. The heat, swelling, and fever of an inflammatory reaction often feel like an illness in themselves. In reality, they are the exact physical signatures of a highly precise biological machine, one that must strike a delicate balance between destruction and repair to save the host.